we just came down to. We can see it better. We can see it better in another place. So we're going to enter the room where the electronics that decides whether or not the proton-proton collision is interesting is located. I'm not going to talk a lot in there because it's even noisier than here. It's less than 8 seconds, no? It has to be less than 8 seconds, less than 8 seconds. Otherwise, the lag would be awful. Okay, so can you guys hear me well? Good. So visitors cannot come here, but since there are your virtual visitors, I can bring you here. This mess of cables is the heart of CMS. It's the place. Do you see the glass? The glass. Obviously. Yeah. Well, we have to keep it clean, although there's no clean crew that comes here. So I work in that system, the ECAL, the Electromagnetic Calorimeter. So it's from this piece of electronics that we get the decision, yes, take the picture, this is an interesting collision. Okay, so this is all in this cavern, and then behind that wall is the experiment. That's a 7-meter thick concrete wall. So let's go that way. I think you are protected by the virtuality of Skype. We do not fabricate natural disasters at CERN. Okay. Another thing that visitors do not see . So this is, it's all clean up there because all the mess of cables is under the false floor, okay? I'm crouching. So these cables all go around the wall and then down into this well to go around the wall and then to the other side to the experiment. As you can see, there are all sorts of things. There are cables and there are pipes. There are tens of thousands of kilometers of connected stuff. Yes, it's a wild card. It's like when you type asterisk to mean all files. Okay, so enough crouching. So let's check if you guys are radioactive. No, we are not radioactive. Good. So this is a station where you can check if the things that you are bringing in or out of the cavern are active. Because if they are active, you need to treat them in a particular way. So behind this door is the bypass tunnel to the LHD. So we cannot go there because the LHD is a different thing, but I can show you on a map where we are. Cavern up to here. Okay, round thing. And then we walk through this. Good. Here. Question? Let's have that question. Okay, good. So I wanted to show you. And now we're this is the experimental cavern. So this is where the experiment is. And we are going to go around it. You know, because particles are stupid enough that they don't know to do other things than going straight or to just bend a little in magnetic field. So human beings go around here. And this is the last point where humans can go to when we have peace. The last point is here. And go all around and around. Into the experimental cavern. So, just here you can see one of the end cap wheels. So this is one of the wheels that closes the experiment. And you can see pieces of the detector in the middle. Can you guys see that? Okay. And upstairs, oh wow, the plug is open. I need to see that. Do you see that? No, the plug is open means that there's an access possible. It does not mean that. Yeah, the LHD is off, so just relax. Keywords, relax. So up there, can you guys see that? So this, you see stuff? Okay. So this is the shaft through which the detector was lowered. Because the detector consists of 11 slices. Let's put this back so that the visitors don't go there. So the experiment consists of 11 slices. I can show them to you here. So there are 3 slices at the end, then 5 in the middle, and another 3 on the other end. This might be very hard to see, I guess. But okay, and the experiment is now open. And this is not a drawing. You can gawk now. Or hey, you can see the size of a person down there. By the way, it's Saturday. It's Saturday. There are people working. No, I'm not going to say hi. Okay, so what you see, let's look at the different things. The thing here on the right, it's the plug. So this plugs into this one, okay? So this detector, which is hanging out over here, this is what we call a calorimeter. It's basically a rather stupid piece of detector. You just make sure that all the particles interact with it, and then you see how much energy was deposited. And then around it, in this round part, you have muon chambers. So these are, each box has pieces that detect the passage of muon particles. Okay, since we are not normal visitors, or since I am not a visitor, we can actually continue a bit, so I can show you a bit the innards. You can see again lots of pipes. Estimate the number of? No. Okay, let me put the question in a different way. Is it forbidden to show things to people? No. Why don't we show more to physical visitors that come here? For reasons of safety. We don't want people tripping on these cables or those or getting, you see that? Yeah. You see why we don't bring you here physically? Because you will touch it. I don't touch it. Okay, we're getting to the other side of the experiment. You see, it's also open, but it's not as open as the other one. And it's exactly the same, except that it's now on the left. We have the same thing, the calorimeters here, all around. And now I'm just curious to see what's at the end, what's happening here. Oh, wow. This is Y4. Sorry if I talk in code. So this is you see the red stuff? This is iron that serves to close the magnetic field. And here you can see behind it all of these chambers. I mean, these are huge. These are like 2 meter long by 1 meter wide, or 3 meter long by 1 meter wide. I mean, the whole experiment, if I get a better vantage point, the whole experiment is 15 meter diameter, okay? Let's go further up. They are not from me. Okay, let's see. Yeah, this is not Angry Birds Star Wars. So I just wanted to get a better vantage point on the part that is open here. And I think we can go further up. First, you see that tank up there? That's the liquid helium tank that supplies the magnet. I mean, you can see the yellow stuff, yellow-green, and then there's a gray circle. That's a coil. It's the solenoid. It's the thing that generates the very large, 100,000 times larger magnetic field than the Earth. And that's one of the important things, is that since we produce very energetic particles, we need very intense magnetic fields to measure their deflection. Okay, top of the experiment. That is the shaft through which the different pieces of the experiment, the different slices were lowered. And you see down here the detector. You know, it's actually quite amazing when the experiment is closed. You know, all of this moves in and all of that comes this way. The cavern is quite empty when the experiment is closed. Okay, so now the magnetic field power supply. You see here the cables. These are not really your household cables. Yeah, things at CERN tend to be bigger. More dangerous? No, she didn't. Okay. Okay, guys. Is there anything else we can look at here in the cavern? Any questions related to what you guys saw here? Oh, let's see. It comes in, actually it comes in three varieties. You have the golden disc at the left, and then you have the orangey thing more or less in the middle, and then the black one further to the right. Yeah, there are three separate systems. The first one is more sensitive to photons. The one in the middle is sensitive to photons and electrons. And the one at the back is really just, trying to stop every single particle, like neutrons, protons, pions, kaons, you name it, ons. Well, you guys keep on talking about my language. I think that if we don't use language creatively, this stuff is all boring. It's not behind, it's in front. So the strategy, you see, in there, where we cannot see, unless, can I go there? No, I cannot go there. No. I'm not Obama. Okay, so no, I cannot get a better view of that. But in there are actually 4 subdetectors. The most sensitive ones are closest to the place where the collision takes place. So the collision takes place some 2 meters in that direction at the center of the yellow-green stuff. The point is that you have the particles at their most pristine, undisturbed state as they just came out of the collision. So you put the detectors, which are the most precise, as close as possible to the collision. And then as you go out, the detectors become a bit less granular because the particles have been perturbed. And I don't like to say dumb, but the detectors are just simpler because there's no need to measure it so well because the particles have already been perturbed. So you don't want to measure a highway to the micrometer, right? A highway is perfectly measured down to the 100 meters. Especially if it goes from Manila down to Matlog or Manlog or Mavlog or the harbor where there's the ferry to Samar. Matnog, salamat. So, most sensitive in the center, less sensitive, then, stop everything, and then muons are the only particles that actually pass a lot of matter, they traverse a lot of matter without being disturbed, so you have to identify them. No more questions? Okay, sensitivity is not a particularly good way to compare them, but to give you an idea, the detector which is closest to the beam pipe, which is the silicon pixel detector, has elements which are as narrow as a human hair and shorter than a millimeter. Whereas in the muon chambers here, there are pieces of the detector which are 1 meter long. So, particles down there inside are very close to each other. And as they move out, they just split So for the same angle, the distance out here is much larger than the distance down there. So you adapt your resolution to that. Oh. Well, iron is a ferromagnetic material. It means that the spins align in the presence of a magnetic field. So magnetic fields are more easily conducted through iron. So I told you that the winding that we have that produces the magnetic field is this thing over here, the gray one. And it produces a magnetic field which is like this. And then the magnetic field lines go through this part of the detector, and then they close around the loop, and then go through these red bits here. So this red, all of this red around the detector is solid iron. Well, I think it's probably stainless steel, otherwise it would oxidize and rust. We don't want that. I didn't get that. What are you using? What? I would need a mirror to show it. What mobile phone am I using? One which has a camera and runs Skype. What does that really matter? By the way, there is one thing about mobile phones which is interesting to know. I don't know if you guys can see. You can see the red thing over there? As you go down, there is a black line. That is a mobile phone antenna. The whole of the LHC has a GSM antenna. And you can imagine that walkie-talkies don't really work very well when you have lots of dirt between you and your other person. So when cellular networks appeared, CERN was totally on board. And I think that there are mobile phones at CERN since a long, long time because of operations underground. So that you are always reachable. It works like, it's mostly like you want to have a radio with you, but actually visitors are sometimes amazed when I tell them you can text your family saying that you are texting from 100 meters underground. Why are the pipes and cables color-coded in pastel tones? Is that the question? You find that orange over there to be pastel? Why are they bright? Why is it not all gray and dull like good scientific endeavors, or... What is it? Okay, I think that there is a logic to what the colors of cables are. For instance, red cables tend to have high voltages. Then I think blue cables have low voltages, and then you also have optical fibers which are a different color. The important thing in a cable is not just the color. The important thing is that it has a label, so that you know where the two ends are. That's actually the most important property of a cable, is to have a label at the ends, and probably also in the middle. But the color, I'm sorry, we didn't manage to get them all black and white and gray. What can I say? Apple, sir? Apple? You mean the discoveries we have already made? Okay, so these experiments are using the highest energy collisions that we have produced in a controlled way in this planet. Because there are places where collisions are produced with higher energies, but they are not controlled, they are just random stuff happening in the atmosphere. So having these higher energies allows us to probe matter at a scale which is much smaller than previously done. And when we do that, we verify or check experimentally what nature is doing and whether or not that matches what theorists have dreamed and wrote down in mathematical equations. So up to now, everything we have discovered, which is new, matches with what has been predicted by the standard model of particle physics. And here I would like to make a Kuhnian versus Popperian difference, which is that we do not only look for the stuff that confirms the standard model, if you want, stuff that the standard model has predicted. We also look for things which are predicted in alternative theories, like supersymmetry. And these alternative theories have the advantage that they can explain other observations that we have, for instance, from cosmology, which imply that, for instance, dark matter should exist. So we have looked for that, and we haven't found it. But no, right now we're just fixing stuff. No, well, so what's happening right now is that we are in a long shutdown. The LHC is basically being refurbished so that it can go up to its maximum energy. So we can go into cruise speed. And the experiments are profiting to fix. I mean, you can see those guys down there fixing some stuff that, it's been now almost 8 years since some of these detectors have been installed. And they still, most of them run at 99% efficiency, which is rather amazing. So we are basically just taking 1 year to redo some of the things. The LHC is undergoing major work, installing all sorts of escape valves and stuff, checking all the connections between magnets, superconducting magnets. And so we're just profiting from that. And actually, the conditions are going to be very different. Like, you're going to have many more collisions. So we have to finish up with the analysis of the data that we got in 2011 and 12 to prepare for the data that will be coming in 2015. Hopefully. What do you mean, what do you favor? What do I personally favor? I personally favor experimental measurements. No, seriously. So as far as I understand, I'm not a cosmologist, but my understanding is that the latest Planck data is fully compatible with the lambda CDM, which is the standard model of cosmology, which is a rather simple description of what's going on. So it's rather exciting because some people, and it's interesting to see how people polarize. There are people saying that, the 2013 universe is boring, and some people saying that the 2013 universe is simple and beautiful. And, it's probably both. For me, it's just the 2013 universe and our understanding of it, which is a bit better than before. So that is a very difficult question, and it's particularly difficult to answer it when I hear my own echo back and I cannot think straight. But okay, I'm not evading the question. The way I think about it is that once upon a time, some mammals figured out that you could harness fire. They made fireplaces, they had heat, they had light, they could cook, it was easier to digest, etc., etc. It was a great revolution. They made candles at some point. And if you think about it, 200 years ago, we were still lighting things up with candles. Not only giving light, but also creating fires. At some point, somebody was playing with electricity. And they figured out that by passing a current into a certain material, you could make that filament incandesce and produce light. And that was much better in terms of fire hazard safety, in terms of lighting. If you would have continued simply looking at making better candles, you would have never had the incandescent light bulb. And then I'm just going to cut the story short. After that came plasma physics and fluorescent light bulbs. And then came solid-state physics and LED light bulbs. And all of these are the result of fundamental research, not applied research. By the way, particle physics helps in cancer treatments. Very few, because I don't clarify what the God particle is, because that doesn't exist. No, I just don't explain what the God particle is. I dispel the myth of a God particle. Well, I don't like that sort of elitist statement. Different people are good at different things, and the Gaussian distribution. People are distributed in all ways. There are good politicians and politicians, good journalists, bad journalists, good scientists, bad scientists, good clerks, bad clerks, good garage dealers, bad garage dealers. It's the variety of the human condition. So theories have grown smarter with time, and now they give us theories which are not just black and white. They usually have some knobs that you can tune. And as we do our experiments and we tell them we haven't found anything, they say, "Oops, well, it must be above certain value." So it's not a fudge factor. It's really, you say that there's a new particle in this theory, but I don't know its mass. So what we can do is set limits on the mass of that particle, given that theory. And the next time we turn on the LHC with almost twice as much energy, these limits go up by a lot. That's how it's been done since the 50s. I hope so. Well, so first of all, I'm not completely imbued with the Philippine reality of things, okay? So I follow things from afar. We were discussing at home this morning the crazy idea, why doesn't the Philippines have a fleet of, airplanes that can land on water? Because that's an advantage of the Philippines, that you can just send an airplane and it can land on water next to whatever place instead of having convoys of trucks stuck in roads that are blocked and bridges which are broken. But what is the role of science in all of that? Science provides usually the tools for informed decisions. And if you can draw lessons from what has happened, you should be able to prepare better for when the next one comes. Because it will come. It's just a matter of when.
Of the typhoon before it hit the Philippines, because scientists knew still on its way to the Philippines. They knew the level of the storm surge, that the strength of the winds as well as the height of the storm surge was unprecedented. Yes. But many people were still caught off guard. I think Red was talking about this.
Yeah, that's something that I've heard. So I have extended family in Pampanga, and nothing happened there. But I also have friends in San Julian, in Eastern Samar. And there, what I heard is that different barangays prepared in very different ways. Some of them, the people actually knew 4 days in advance, this thing is coming, we have to start moving our stuff to higher ground and, be safer. And I've heard that in other places, the public officials basically did nothing. So that, if that is true, it would demonstrate that there is not a coherent way of issuing alerts and having coordinated action and standardized action to take in case that happens. Like if there is a level 3 alert, everybody should do this and this and this. And, having this sort of standard operating procedures, if you want.
Do you have a normal day there? And if you have a normal day, what is it like, Andre?
Yeah, that's a question I get asked a lot. Well, so I am very fortunate to be able to work according to get things done. So some days I work a lot because things have to get done then. Some days I then try to relax a little more and I don't work as much. But the typical day is in the morning when there are collisions, we have the operations meetings of what is happening in terms of the experiment. I mean, is that thing working properly? And then in the afternoon, there are the physics meetings, because 30% of CMS is US collaborators. So it's morning for them on the West Coast, and it's afternoon for us here. And then in the night, you can actually do some work for yourself. So 12-hour days are rather common. I hate that question because people tend to answer saying, I am a blah blah. And I try to be whatever is needed because I really like to know about everything. So if you need to take a screwdriver and go and fix something, I would like to be able to do that. For instance, I have not been allowed to take the driver's license for these cranes, but I would have liked to. But at the time, somebody told me, no, you are a physicist, you don't do that. So the two main things about my present situation is that I am responsible for the operations of the electromagnetic calorimeter. So it's just one of the pieces which is in there that you can see. And the other one is that I work in the Higgs boson combination and properties measurements. So trying to figure out ways of disproving that this is the standard model Higgs boson. That's my philosophy. I don't think there's any other way of progressing. Sorry, Red, go.
What you're doing now and what you've shown us has been very cool. Like, what kind of advice would you give them? Like, for someone aspiring to be like you, of people of all ages, what do you think? What can you tell them?
It's very complicated. It's important. It's important to trust nature and to probe nature as it is. Now, I'm sorry if this sounds a bit hermetic. So what I mean is that do not have preconceptions. Be able to accept what the data are telling you, but at the same time, try to make sure that it's not a mistake that you've done. And how did I get here? Well, first of all, I'm a national of a member state, which kind of helps. Because CERN is an international organization, and, it's very, very exceptional that people are taken from countries which are not member states. Now, CERN has a program, and we actually get a couple of Filipino summer students every year, because there are some ties between the CERN and in particular, CMS experiment and I think UPD Liman in the Philippines. So that's one thing. What did I do? I graduated in physics. I went to physics in university because it was next to my grandparents' house and it sounded like an interesting thing. So I could have been an engineer and have a proper job and earn a lot of money and all that stuff, but, I thought that physics was interesting. Fortunately, my parents were supportive of the idea of, learning interesting stuff. And then in my last year, I was doing a final project in something extremely applied, which was microtechnologies, like thin layers, silicon chips sort of stuff, and something completely theoretical, which was dimensional regularization of Feynman diagrams in phi 3 theories. And then my I quit the experimental part because I did not have a budget for all of the ripped jeans that every week I have to rip a pair of jeans, so I couldn't buy enough clothes. And the theory part, my supervisor at the end told me, you know, Andre, I think you were not born for theory. And then she told me, why don't you talk with Professor blah blah, and he has a project at CERN, I think it's more practical. And then 6 months I was here. I did not know what CERN was, and I've been here since 13 years now. Well, you know, there are very good, very nice advantages of being in your grandparents' place. You know, I think Filipinos know that. Go check your facts. It's not as expensive as it sounds, or as the media makes it sound, because you have to usually divide it by 300 million European people paying and 20 years long project. Keep imagining possibilities of what the universe is made of, because we need those things. And think of things that can be tested experimentally, because that is the ultimate test.
To the Red Cross. So we encourage, and we continue to encourage.
Thank you. Thank you, guys. No, that's pretty good. But that's not for the work that I do, right? Guys, thank you for organizing this. See ya. Bye.
Awesome, right?
It
Like,
was.
It was like we were really there. It was like we were using the Oculus Rift.